time for another adventure. Hey everybody, reporting live from the awesome, vibrant city of Lima, Peru. And I just looked at the waves, a little bit of high tide, but there's some nice lines coming in. And I thought I would use this time to talk about, since I'm in a city with a history of colonization, primarily from the Spanish. I thought I would use this time to talk about decolonizing our therapy practices. And I don't know if you know, but Peru lost 93% of its population due to Spanish colonization. And it can be argued that the colonization efforts have resulted in long-term intergenerational inequities of distribution of wealth and systems that are still present today. There's a lot of inequity still present in the city, and you can see it in a lot of different ways, with a lot of wealth distributed unequally. So yeah, that's what I thought I would use as a jumping off place for this little conversation on decolonizing our therapy practices. And the framework I thought I would use to guide this quick conversation on decolonizing our therapy practice is the great article, Decolonizing Academia, Intersectionality, Participation, Accountability in Family Therapy and Counseling by Drs. Teresa McDowell and Pilar Hernandez-Wolfe. And although their article is geared more towards academia, I think we can use their framework to kind of frame this conversation about decolonizing our practices, our therapy practices. And they offer a framework for decolonizing practices in family therapy and counseling by using three foundational elements, and those are intersectionality, participation, and accountability. And they use the term colonization or colonism to refer to the promotion of dominant dominant group ideologies, beliefs, and cultural practices for the purpose of maintaining centered positions of cultural, social, and economic capital. They also make a very important distinction, I think, that they state that a decolonizing framework stands on a perspective of coexistence rather than opposition to Eurocentric thinking, because unlike Eurocentric universal endeavors, decolonial projects seek to be pluriversal, meaning why take one idea and try to center it over others? You would just be doing the same thing that colonizers are doing, basically. So anyway, I think that's a very important distinction, that rather than kind of centering their ideas, they're very interested in a multitude of ideas coexisting together, and I think that sits very well for our therapy practices. So how might the first element of intersectionality inform our practices, our family therapy practice as well? It could start by therapists should be aware of the privileges and oppressions that the intersections of their social locations create. We should honestly examine how we're complicit to forms of oppression and how we can be responsible to forms of oppression. Therapists should be ready to initiate conversations with clients about intersecting identities and their influence, because we are in that power seat. I was taught early on that it's my responsibility, because I'm in the power seat of the therapist, to raise questions of race, genders, sexualities that might not otherwise get raised because of power relations. And which leads us to the third piece for how intersectionality might influence our practices, is that we should always be examining power relations. So how might the second element of McDowell's and Hernandez-Wolfe's framework for decolonization participation play out or inform our therapeutic practices? Well, I think it absolutely starts with a decentering of the therapist as the expert, decentering their expert knowledge. This is once again us examining our power and being accountable to that power. We're definitely avoiding normalizing judgment. Oftentimes therapy is about moving people to what is considered normal in the dominant culture, and we're absolutely about avoiding that normalizing judgment or that movement towards some sort of idea of normal. And with that in mind, we must be always willing to abandon ideas of logic or ideas of rational thinking. We must always be inviting hybrid forms of knowledge with an understanding that our clients have our access to many different wisdoms, knowledges, spiritualities, practices, rituals that we should always maybe be asking about, or try to access. And then finally, I think the last piece that, at least for this little segment, for participation would include self-determination by our clients, meaning a kind of a true collaboration, that the client determines what's helpful, what is helping. The client is guiding us in this practice, and they're always operating from a place of personal agency in our work together. This brings us to our third and final element of McDowell's and Hernandez-Wolfe's framework on decolonizing, and that is accountability. And in their article, McDowell and Hernandez-Wolfe write that simply acknowledging positions of privilege allows for false accountability that maintains individual advantage and systemic oppression. So it's not enough just to admit, well, yeah, I'm white, male, hetero, cisgendered, I got privilege, that we need to do more both in and out of the therapy room. And and I guess as privileged people, sometimes we get captured by the idea that we could do it for or solve for. They write in their article about how those with privilege often get captured by this idea of solve for rather than with, and I think that's a very important distinction that oftentimes in this work of decolonizing, we're being asked to decenter ourselves as well, not just as therapists, but also in the activist work. We're being asked to decenter ourselves as well, which it doesn't come easy for people that are used to having privilege. But it's very, very important. And I'd be really curious to hear from you some of the ways that you feel like we can be accountable. In the comment section of the video, I would be very interested to learn from you, to hear from you about ways that we might be able to be accountable to decolonizing therapy and just in these efforts out in the world. It would be very interesting to hear that from you. So that's my video, and I look forward to hearing from you. And as always, please click like or subscribe or click share this video with somebody you think might find it helpful or useful. It would be very much appreciated. And I'm off to Cusco now, and then Machu Picchu, and then home, and I'm sure I'll have more content both on the podcast and on the channel. So thanks for watching. My name's Chris Hoff, and this has been The Radical Therapist.